Hemlock Ridge, with its undulating fields and whispers of ancient forest, was a tapestry woven with the threads of quiet routine and generations of shared history. It was a place where the loudest sound was often the rustle of leaves or the distant lowing of cattle, a rural idyll where the unexpected felt like a distant urban myth. Yet, beneath that placid surface, a profound darkness lay coiled, waiting for the opportune moment to strike, proving that even the most tranquil landscapes can harbor the most chilling secrets. Abigail Peterson, a young woman whose vibrant spirit illuminated every corner of her beloved grandparents' farm, evaporated into this serene setting, leaving behind only an aching silence and a mother's unbearable agony. Her absence ripped an irreparable hole in the heart of the community, turning the comforting familiar into a landscape of foreboding. How could a soul so full of life simply vanish without a trace from a place so seemingly safe, as desperate searches yielded nothing but the relentless passage of time? An unsettling question began to take root in the minds of those who knew Abby. What sinister truth had Hemlock Ridge Farm and its reclusive owner buried so deeply that it defied all efforts to unearth it? Hemlock Ridge, a canvas of emerald fields and ancient murmuring forests, had long prided itself on an existence as untroubled as its gentle rolling hills. Here generations had spun an intricate web of interwoven lives, where the cadence of the seasons orchestrated every moment, and the clamor of the outside world resonated as a muted, irrelevant echo. It was into this pastoral certainty that Abigail Peterson, a vibrant 22-year-old with an artist's soul and a laugh that could chase away shadows, returned. A college student, she had come home to the familiar comfort of her grandparents' farm, a haven of cherished childhood memories, to offer solace to her ailing grandmother. Her presence, a sunlit burst of youthful energy, rekindled a quiet sparkle in the aged farmhouse. One radiant afternoon, mere weeks after her arrival, Abby embarked on a familiar trek. Her path led towards the ancient, moss-covered stone wall that delineated her family's manicured acreage from the sprawling, untamed wilderness of Elias Thorne's property, a place rumored to conceal a long-abandoned well. In her grasp, she carried a beloved, leather-bound sketchbook, its pages a testament to her burgeoning artistic aspirations. That boundary line, where nature's raw beauty met cultivated order, was her preferred sanctuary for inspiration. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in fiery hues, an unsettling quiet descended upon the Peterson household. Sarah Peterson, Abby's mother, felt the first subtle prickle of unease when her daughter failed to appear for dinner. This quickly escalated into the suffocating weight of panic as minutes bled into an agonizing expanse of hours. She was larger than life. Sarah would later recall, her voice strained by an enduring sorrow, her eyes fixed on a distant point, always finding beauty in the smallest things. The idea that she could simply vanish felt utterly incomprehensible. Frantic calls to friends and neighbors yielded nothing but shared bewilderment and a growing collective dread. Abby Peterson had inexplicably ceased to exist within their known world. The local sheriff's department, a small, close-knit unit accustomed to mundane disputes and errant livestock, found themselves adrift in a baffling void. Their initial earnest searches, a handful of patrol cars, navigating darkening roads, volunteers, calling Abby's name into the encroaching twilight, uncovered nothing beyond a profound, echoing silence. The dense woods seemed to absorb all sound, offering no breadcrumbs, no trace. With each fruitless passing day, the fear metastasized, replacing Hemlock Ridge's serene veneer with a pervasive, icy grip. Amidst the community's deepening despair, Elias Thorne and his isolated property began to command a hushed, unsettling focus. His farm, a stark silhouette against the fading light, featured an ancient, disused well, its dark circular mouth half consumed by a riot of wild brambles. It stood as an ominous, voiceless sentinel shrouded in shadows, whispered to guard secrets as profound as its own murky depths. For the beleaguered residents of Hemlock Ridge, their familiar world had been irrevocably cleaved, giving way to a gnawing premonition. Some truths, perhaps the most terrifying, lay hidden in plain sight, waiting in the heart of their quiet home. Days bled into a week, then into a second each sunrise, bringing renewed, crushing disappointment for the Peterson family. The initial shock had calcified into an unbearable, gnawing torment. Abby's mother, Sarah Peterson, her face etched with exhaustion and unspeakable grief, stood before a hastily assembled bank of cameras, her voice trembling but resolute. "You can't be strong through something like that," she whispered, her hands clenching the public display of her raw anguish, a testament to a mother's ultimate desperation. "It just rips you to pieces every single second you don't know where your child is." Her plea, amplified across local news channels, was a desperate cry into the void, a mother's last resort, when all other avenues had failed. The local sheriff's department, a small force utterly unequipped for a case of such profound mystery and scale, found themselves floundering. Their earnest but ultimately untrained efforts had yielded nothing. The dense, sprawling forests and isolated farmlands of Hemlock Ridge, once a source of comfort, now seemed to mock their limited resources, hoarding their secrets with unnerving efficiency. The leads, tenuous at best, had withered to nothing, leaving a vacuum of expertise that threatened to condemn Abby's case to the cold file of the unsolved. It was this profound absence of progress that drew the attention of the State Homicide Unit. And with that attention came Detective Sergeant Ben Carter. Carter arrived in Hemlock Ridge, not with a fanfare, but with the quiet, methodical resolve that had earned him a reputation for untangling the most intricate of cases. A man whose demeanor was as controlled as his investigative process, Carter embodied the pragmatic, determined pursuit of justice. He was not a man swayed by local gossip or public emotion, but by facts, by procedure, by the silent testimony of evidence. Carter's first act was to meticulously sift through the paltry initial case file, a sparse collection of notes and dead-end leads. His eyes, keen and analytical, missed nothing. He noted the local sheriff's sincere but overwhelmed attempts, the lack of any significant forensic processing, and most critically, the recurring yet underexplored mention of Abby's last known trajectory. Abby had been heading towards the ancient stone wall, the boundary between her grandparents' land and the sprawling, unkempt property of Elias Thorne, the community's silent recluse. For Carter, it was a detail that hummed with quiet significance. Investigators believe the attacker had kicked the dog into a ditch before abducting Mandy, the omniscient narrator clarifies, contextualizing Carter's thoughts. But Detective Kevin Bowie has pieced together Mandy's route. Similarly, Carter's mind began to assemble Abby's. He recognized that in such isolated communities, the most profound secrets often lingered just beneath the surface, protected by ingrained habits and a disinclination to question eccentricities. Thorne's almost hermetic existence, once dismissed as mere oddity, now resonated with a deeper, more unsettling possibility. Carter, trusting his gut, immediately began to dispatch his state resources, ordering his team to systematically re-interview every resident, their focus meticulously honed on any interaction, however fleeting they might have had, with the enigmatic farmer. The initial haphazard search was over. The hunt for Abby now possessed a relentless, guiding force, ready to navigate the complex maze of Hemlock Ridge's hidden truths. Hemlock Ridge held few true enigmas, but Elias Thorne was unequivocally one of them. He was the solitary steward of Hemlock Ridge Farm, a vast, unkempt expanse that, much like its owners, seemed to deliberately shun the modern world. Neighbors interviewed by Detective Carter's state team chose their words carefully, almost apologetically. "Odd," one farmer mumbled, shrugging away eye contact. "He just kept to himself." Another, an elder of the community, conceded, "Never caused a lick of trouble, mind you, just lived his own life." Yet beneath these understated observations, a subtle current of unease rippled, suggesting a discomfort more profound than mere eccentricity. Thorne's existence was a study in precise, almost ritualistic isolation. His gaunt figure rarely strayed beyond his property lines, his days consumed by the ceaseless demands of his solitary labor. Driven by the cold logic of evidence, Detective Carter immediately authorized discreet surveillance on Thorne's sprawling property. From a hidden vantage point, his team observed the farmhouse, a weathered edifice that seemed to sag under the weight of untold years, and the surrounding fields, which bordered on a primal wildness. The very landscape felt like an extension of Thorne's guarded psyche, overgrown, isolated, hoarding its secrets close. A palpable quiet hung in the air around the farm, thick with the echoes of an unshared past. Carter, ever methodical, opted for a direct approach. His initial attempt to formally question Thorne was met with a polite, yet utterly unyielding stonewall. Thorne, his features drawn, his eyes unnervingly vacant, stood framed in his doorway. He calmly reiterated his absolute ignorance regarding Abby Peterson's disappearance. "I haven't seen any young woman," he stated, his gaze unwavering, but devoid of true engagement. "I tend to my farm. I'd appreciate it if you'd let me continue my work." His unnerving composure, bordering on indifference, tested Carter's seasoned patience. Thorne's responses were masterfully noncommittal, a smooth deflection that offered no purchase for interrogation, simply an impenetrable request for solitude. Despite Thorne's facade, a peculiar, almost magnetic pull drew Carter's attention repeatedly to one specific point, the ancient, disused well. It sat half-swallowed by a riot of thick bramble and gnarled roots, its rusty grate barely visible. Its presence on the desolate landscape felt less like an abandoned relic, and more like a silent, accusing witness. Carter, a seasoned veteran, understood that the most ordinary objects in an extraordinary case could often hold the most profound truths. The well, for all its mundane appearance, resonated with a deeper, unsettling potential. Trusting the instinct honed by decades of experience, Carter instructed his team to immediately secure a search warrant. The formidable wall of Thorne's isolation was about to be systematically breached, and the deep-seated secrets of Hemlock Ridge Farm laid bare to the scrutinizing light of justice. As Detective Carter's team navigated the labyrinthine bureaucracy to secure the crucial search warrant, the narrative's lens widened, pulling back to reveal the deeper, often sinister historical layers that clung to Hemlock Ridge Farm. The Thorn lineage, the omniscient narrator revealed, was itself a complex weave of insularity and peculiar behavior. Elias's grandfather, Silas Thorn, loomed large in local memory, a man known for a quick, volatile temper and a stark, almost primal self-sufficiency. Whispers of his fierce independence and strange practices on the isolated land circulated amongst the oldest residents' tales, passed down through generations like unsettling heirlooms. Even then, the farm was regarded with a disquieting blend of fascination and apprehension, a place where the conventional rules of communal life seemed not to apply. Local legends more akin to persistent folklore than verifiable fact began to seep into the fringes of the ongoing investigation. Neighbors hesitant to cast direct aspersions offered fragmented anecdotes steeped in the macabre. Unusual things always happened on that land. One elderly woman mumbled, her eyes wide with remembered unease, animals vanishing without a trace, and sometimes strange flickering lights deep in the woods after dark. These were not accusations, but rather potent ingredients in a pervasive local mythology, collectively fueling a quiet dread surrounding the Thorn name. The deep, dark well, now the focus of intense scrutiny, bore its own legacy of grim stories, often invoked as a chilling cautionary tale for wayward children. Detective Carter, a man firmly anchored in logic and empirical evidence, dismissed such folklore as proof. Yet he was too astute an investigator to ignore the pervasive, almost tangible sense of foreboding that saturated the farm. He understood the profound psychological weight of community legend, how it could both obscure and, paradoxically, illuminate unspoken truths. The oppressive atmosphere of ancient dread, while inadmissible in court, was a powerful, undeniable factor in the human landscape of the investigation. With the warrant finally secured, a comprehensive search of the farmhouse and its sprawling acreage commenced. The initial sweep of the house proved unexpectedly jarring. Despite the exterior's weathered decay, much of the interior, particularly the main living spaces, presented a peculiar, almost stark sterility. There was an eerie absence of the personal clutter typically amassed over a lifetime, a chilling contrast to areas of obvious neglect like the dusty, unused attic. The unsettling emptiness itself seemed to hold a secret. The vast, untamed acreage surrounding the farmhouse presented its own formidable challenges. The dense undergrowth and uneven terrain rendered a meticulous ground search arduous and agonizingly slow. And then there was the well. Its formidable depth, shrouded in impenetrable darkness, combined with the immediate lack of specialized equipment, prohibited an instantaneous, thorough exploration. It remained a lingering, silent cipher, tantalizingly central, yet frustratingly unyielding. For Sarah Peterson, the televised images of investigators painstakingly sifting through the property, only to report no significant findings, felt like a fresh, devastating wound. Her hope, already a fragile thread, after weeks of agonizing uncertainty, began to fray irrevocably. Each news update detailing fruitless efforts landed with the impact of a physical blow constricting her chest. The silence from the farm was a deafening roar of continued torment. This lack of progress, even with the full force of state resources, now engaged, cemented her deepest fear that Abby's vanishing might remain an eternal enigma, forever swallowed by the secrets of Hemlock Ridge and its reclusive past. The investigation, teetering on the precipice of another agonizing dead end, found its focus relentlessly drawn back to the old well. Detective Carter's seasoned intuition, often his most reliable, if intangible guide, insisted on its profound significance. The well, a brooding circular void at the edge of Thorne's property, seemed to exert a silent, undeniable gravitational pull. With renewed determination, Carter secured the necessary resources, a specialized team, equipped with state-of-the-art sonar, remote submersible cameras, and industrial-grade dredging equipment. The omniscient narrator outlines the meticulous, painstaking process that began transforming the speculative into the undeniably tangible. The remote cameras, battling the perpetual gloom and layers of submerged debris, slowly, methodically, began to scan the well's inky, frigid water. Hours of frustrating, distorted images flickered across monitors, a monotonous parade of sediment and natural detritus. Then a flicker, a distinct anomaly, something unmistakably unnatural amidst the timeless decay. It was indistinct, yet undeniably there a shape that profoundly did not belong. The discovery galvanized the team, a visceral surge of adrenaline, cutting through the long days of methodical frustration. The air in the makeshift command post crackled with a sudden, urgent energy. A recovery operation fraught with logistical challenges, given the well's formidable depth and the precarious access, was immediately launched. Divers specialized for confined, hazardous spaces began their perilous descent into the frigid darkness. The tension in the gathering became a palpable entity, a heavy weight that pressed down on everyone present. Every movement was slow, deliberate, agonizingly precise. Then the dredge, a heavy claw lowered into the murky depths, began its slow, agonizing ascent. The suspense was almost unbearable as it breached the surface, dripping with cold, dark water, its contents obscured. Pulled from the well's chilling embrace, encased in a weighted canvas bag, were items that instantly silenced the onlookers. Inside, beneath layers of silt and the grim residue of decay, emerged Abby Peterson's cherished personal effects, a distinctive silver locket, intricately engraved, a delicate, interwoven bracelet she rarely removed, and a tattered, waterlogged scrap of her favorite scarf, its once vibrant pattern muted by time and grime. For the grieving family, the raw agony, previously a distant, abstract ache, now materialized into a devastating, crushing reality. The discovery delivered a definitive yet brutal blow to any remaining vestige of hope for Abby's survival. Sarah Peterson, watching the news reports, crumpled to the floor, her body racked by an ancient primal scream that tore through the quiet of her home. The well, once a site of whispered legends, now bore irrefutable, horrifying testimony. It was a crushing confirmation of the deepest fears, plunging the entire community into a profound collective mourning. Yet it also ignited a desperate, fierce new phase of the investigation. The unknown had given way to a terrifying certainty. Abby had not simply vanished, she had been murdered. The well had finally relinquished its dark truth, providing a tangible direction, a horrifying revelation that demanded to be fully unearthed. The pursuit of justice now burned with an unquenchable fire, relentlessly focused on the malevolent shadows lurking beneath Hemlock Ridge. With the well now undeniably linked to Abby Peterson, the investigative spotlight burned with an almost painful intensity upon Elias Thorne and the entirety of Hemlock Ridge Farm. Forensic teams, a meticulous army in stark white suits, descended upon the property. Their methodical precision, a stark contrast to the earlier broader searches, now focused with surgical intent on the farmhouse itself, meticulously scrutinizing every surface, every shadow seeking any anomaly that betrayed Thorne's carefully constructed fade of mundane routine. Detective Carter, his gaze missing nothing, moved through the house with a quiet, almost predatory focus. He observed the peculiar sterile emptiness that characterized the main living areas, a chilling anomaly in a home ostensibly lived in for decades. His keen eye, however, snagged on something subtly amiss in the cellar. Amidst the ancient rough-hewn stone and decaying timbers, a section of wall stood out. It was freshly plastered, jarringly out of place, its smoother texture and lighter hue, a stark contradiction to the house's deep-rooted decrepitude. It was too new, too perfect a deliberate attempt at concealment. His resolve firm, Carter ordered a closer inspection. The rhythmic thud of tools biting into plaster echoed ominously through the old foundations, a sound that sliced through the methodical quiet of the investigation. Dust plumed from the wall, revealing not solid stone, but an unexpected cavity. Behind the crumbling facade, a hidden reinforced door began to emerge, its very existence a profound contradiction to Thorne's earlier claims of innocence and ignorance. This discovery spoke volumes of a calculated deception. The moment the hidden door was forcibly breached, a profound, suffocating stillness settled instantly, displacing the earlier sounds of methodical inquiry. A wave of cold, musty air, thick with the scent of decay and a metallic tang, rushed out, carrying with it the undeniable weight of an unspoken grim history. It was a tomb, not just for secrets, but for the echoes of terror that seemed to cling to the very air, a chilling testament to unseen horrors. A profound, suffocating stillness had settled within its walls, a silence that screamed of depravity, a suffocating darkness that defied easy explanation. Inside the secret room was small, soundproofed, a claustrophobic space clearly designed for absolute containment. A makeshift bed, crudely fashioned from plywood, stood against one wall, accompanied by disturbing restraints fixed firmly to the structure. Strewn about were other, more personal horrors. A discarded hair tie, Abby frequently wore a scuffed shoe, and a small, unsettling collection of her personal belongings, far more intimate and revealing than the items later recovered from the well. The room, a grim tableau, bore undeniable signs of long-term habitation and desperate struggle. It was here, within these chilling confines, that the horrific truth solidified. Abby had not simply vanished, nor was her death instantaneous. She had been held captive, her final days unfolding in this hidden crypt of despair, unequivocally linking Elias Thorne to her agonizing fate. Forensic experts, their faces set in grim resolve, meticulously processed every horrifying detail within the confines of the newly unearthed secret room. A heavy, stagnant air, tinged with a faint metallic tang, served as a mute testament to the unspeakable acts that had transpired. Each square inch became a potential clue, a voiceless witness, its surface yielding vital fragments of truth. Blood spatter analysis, DNA swabs from various surfaces, the crude makeshift bed, the cold metal restraints, the very walls themselves, and the painstaking lifting of fingerprints became the immediate critical priorities. The omniscient narrator outlines this rigorous scientific process, transforming the macabre scene into a meticulously assembled mosaic of irrefutable evidence. Every fiber, every microscopic trace became a demanding voice from the past. But the most chilling discovery, the one that truly shattered the room's eerie quiet and gave eloquent voice to its horrors, was found hidden beneath a loose floorboard. Carefully wrapped in a tattered piece of fabric, almost as if Abby herself had tried to safeguard its truth, was a small leather-bound diary. It was Abby Peterson's own voice, an unfiltered, harrowing, first-person account of her abduction, her desperate struggle against her captor, and her agonizing days spent imprisoned. The pages, filled with a frantic looping script, spoke of the initial terror, the crushing realization of her captivity, and the systematic psychological torment inflicted by Elias Thorne. Her entries chronicled Thorne's chillingly methodical planning, how he had lured her with a fabricated story of a lost pet near the old stone wall, the sudden brutal attack that followed, and the terrifying journey to this hidden sound-proofed room. Abby recounted his cold, calculated control, his insidious manipulation that slowly, cruelly eroded her spirit. She meticulously marked the passage of days, tallying them by the faint, diffused light filtering through a tiny, cleverly concealed vent, and the chilling consistency of her captor's routine. He brought me water, one entry, read her handwriting, trembling, but always just barely enough. Enough to keep me alive, enough to remind me I was his completely. Another entry starkly noted the silence here is worse than any noise. It fills your head until you think you're screaming, but no sound comes out. The diary's power lay in its raw, intimate detail, its capacity to transport the reader directly into the claustrophobic nightmare of her captivity. Her last entry dated just days before her personal effects were discovered, in the well-painted, a vivid and devastating picture of her ultimate desperate attempt to escape and her final terrifying moments. It implicated Thorne beyond any shadow of a doubt, filling in the horrific gaps the physical evidence only hinted at. The diary confirmed that Abby had been a prisoner subjected to protracted cruelty, not merely a victim of a fleeting act of violence. It provided the motive, the method, and the chilling timeline, transforming the suffocating room into a crucible of undeniable evidence. No longer could Elias Thorne hide behind his reclusive facade. The horrors etched into Abby's own words made any escape from its truth utterly impossible. Elias Thorne was ushered into the sterile confines of the interrogation room, a stark, clinical space that offered a jarring contrast to the dark, musty secrets of his farmhouse. The seasoned detective Ben Carter sat opposite him, a figure of contained intensity, his gaze unwavering, unyielding. Thorne initially embodied the deceptive suspect persona, with chilling precision, maintaining a disarming fade of bewildered innocence. His eyes, though meeting Carter's, held a peculiar, unnerving blankness, his voice calm, almost placid, as he feigned utter ignorance of Abby's disappearance and the devastating personal items now recovered from his well. "I don't know anything about a young woman," he stated, his hands resting loosely on the table. "I've been on my farm just like I told your officers." He denied any knowledge, any involvement, his calm exterior a deliberately impenetrable shield. Carter, armed with the irrefutable evidence from the well and the newly exposed secret room, began his systematic dismantling of Thorne's meticulously constructed denials. The omniscient narrator describes the psychological ballet unfolding, the slow, methodical erosion of Thorne's composure. Detective Carter understood that consistency was the bedrock of truth and the enemy of deception. The narrator explained, and Thorne's narrative was about to be put to the ultimate unforgiving test. Carter's voice remained even almost conversational as he began to lay out the unvarnished facts. Mr. Thorne Carter began pushing a stark photograph of Abby's distinctive silver locket across the table. This was found in your well. Do you recognize it? Thorne blinked slowly, his expression unchanging, a carefully cultivated mask. No, I do not. Perhaps someone else placed it there. Carter merely nodded, then slid another photo, this one depicting Abby's unique interwoven bracelet. And this also recovered from the depths of your well. Thorne's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly, a fleeting micro-expression betraying a hairline fracture in his composure. The well is ancient, detective. Anything could have fallen in over the years. His voice, though still calm, had lost a fraction of its earlier placidness. He attempted to deflect, to weave flimsy, elaborate false narratives, suggesting the items could have been planted by unknown parties. He pretended he didn't even remember her. The omniscient narrator recalls emphasizing Thorne's practiced duplicity. The true turning point arrived when Carter, with deliberate slowness, placed a copy of Abby's personal diary on the table, its leather cover worn, its contents incendiary. This, Mr. Thorne, Carter, stated, his voice now lower, harder, infused with a cold certainty. This is Abby Peterson's own words. Her account of what happened to her in that hidden room right under your house. He paused, letting the crushing weight of the diary's presence settle between them. Thorne's practiced composure began to visibly shatter. His eyes darted wildly to the diary, then back to Carter, a raw flicker of something akin to fear, or perhaps pure, unadulterated hatred momentarily distorting his features. The confident mask completely slipped. His hands, previously at rest, now clenched into tight, white-knuckled fists beneath the table. The shift was subtle, yet profoundly damning. His answers became increasingly evasive, riddled with stuttered half-truths and desperate, vague disavowals. The psychological pressure intensified, a silent but relentless assault on Thorne's lies, showcasing the detective's mastery of interrogation as a strategic art, pushing the suspect ever closer to the precipice of his horrifying truth. The interrogation stretched, becoming a relentless cerebral assault on Elias Thorne's increasingly fractured narrative. Detective Carter, now joined by the sharp analytical mind of Detective Emily Ross, a quiet force known for her meticulous attention to detail, methodically presented irrefutable evidence that systematically dismantled Thorne's every fabricated claim. The sterile room, once a stage for Thorne's calculated performance, began to feel like a cage slowly shrinking around him. You claimed to be at your cousin's farm, 70 miles north, on the day Abby Peterson disappeared. Mr. Thorne, Detective Ross stated, her voice calm but penetrating, sliding a series of grainy CCTV stills across the table. Yet here you are, at the Hemlock Ridge General Store, buying these items. The images, time-stamped and clear, showed Thorne purchasing heavy-duty duct tape, industrial-grade rope, and a peculiar brand of high-calorie energy bars, the very same sustenance Abby had meticulously noted in her diary as her only provision during the initial days of her captivity. Thorne's eyes widened, a momentary primal flicker of panic escaping his carefully guarded facade. His earlier placid denials now felt hollow, definitively exposed. Next, Carter produced a detailed printout of phone records. And while you claimed to be visiting a sick relative hours away, your cell phone records tell a very different story. Carter continued, his voice low, firm. Your phone, Mr. Thorne, never left the network tower covering Hemlock Ridge that entire week. It shows consistent pings to a specific tower just 2 miles from your property, precisely during the times you claimed to be driving across the state. The contradiction was stark, undeniable. Thorne's alibis, once flimsy, now crumbled to dust under the weight of digital truth. The deceptive suspect, Elias Thorne, cornered and thoroughly exposed, became visibly desperate, his meticulously maintained composure dissolving into frustrated, raw anger. He slammed a fist lightly on the table, the small sound echoing in the tense room. "It's a setup," he hissed, his flushing crimson. "Someone's trying to frame me, plant these things on my property." His body language screamed guilt as he attempted to pivot, first blaming an unknown accomplice, a shadowy figure he couldn't name, describe, or substantiate. "There was another man he made me," Thorne stammered, his eyes darting wildly. When that desperate fabrication failed to gain any traction, he plunged into a new abyss of deceit. The omniscient narrator clarifies Thorne, then posited a grotesque alternate reality, suggesting a clandestine romance with Abby Peterson. He presented the hidden room as a private love nest, a clandestine escape for their forbidden liaison. It was a desperate, vile attempt to rationalize the undeniable presence of her belongings, the secret room, and the chilling first-hand accounts in her diary. The blatant disrespect for Abby's memory, for her very being, hung heavy in the air, sickening the seasoned detectives. The omniscient narrator explains the procedural meticulousness, highlighting how each failed attempt at deceit, every desperate contortion of the truth, inextricably tightened the web around Thorne. Every new falsehood, rather than offering an escape, only served to weave a more formidable knot in the tapestry of his undeniable culpability, the narrator observed. The psychological chess match culminated, leaving Thorne with no viable escape route. His truth, raw and horrifying, was now laid bare, completely exposed for the monster he truly was. The grim truth of Abby Peterson's fate, meticulously uncovered from the depths of the well and the chilling confines of the secret room, detonated across the quiet borders of Hemlock Ridge, sending shockwaves that rippled far beyond. The story, a harrowing tapestry of innocence, betrayed, and evil, starkly unmasked, commanded intense national media scrutiny. Elias Thorne, his intricate web of lies, shredded by irrefutable evidence, was formally charged with abduction, false imprisonment, and the heinous murder of Abby Peterson, setting the stage for a dramatic, deeply emotional trial. The omniscient narrator establishes the gravity of this impending legal battle, detailing the immense weight of public expectation now resting squarely on the shoulders of the justice system. The prosecution, spearheaded by District Attorney Evelyn Reed, a formidable presence known for her piercing intellect and unyielding resolve, meticulously began to construct a compelling, devastating case. Her opening statements, a precise, dispassionate recitation of facts, nonetheless painted a chilling tableau of calculated cruelty that resonated deeply with the jury. She presented the overwhelming forensic evidence. The undeniable DNA links, the personal items recovered from the well, the chilling contents of the secret room, and most powerfully, the harrowing first-person accounts from Abby's own diary. Each piece of evidence, strategically placed, functioned as a hammer blow against Thorne's defense, building an unassailable narrative of his guilt. Every single day, the grieving family, Sarah and Mark Peterson, occupied the front row of the courtroom. Their faces, etched with an enduring raw pain, conveyed a quiet, unyielding determination to witness justice for their daughter. Sarah, in particular, sat ramrod straight, her eyes fixed on Thorne, absorbing every word, every piece of testimony, a silent sentinel demanding accountability. Their constant presence served as a poignant, inescapable reminder of the profound human cost of the crime. Thorne, embodying the defiant perpetrator persona, stood emotionless as he entered a plea of not guilty. His defense counsel, a high-profile attorney, specializing in seemingly unwinnable cases, attempted to sow seeds of doubt. He argued for a frame-up, suggesting the evidence was circumstantial, manipulated, or even planted by an unknown third party, claims that utterly lacked any credible supporting evidence. The defense tried desperately to portray Thorne as a misunderstood recluse, a victim of small-town prejudice, and an overzealous police investigation. But the graphic details of Abby's captivity, meticulously recounted by expert forensic witnesses and illuminated by the stark, visceral passages from her diary, pierced the courtroom's somber silence. Each word, each chilling description of her ordeal, forced her parents to relive the nightmare, their shoulders shaking, their hands clutching one another in silent torment. It was an unjust, brutal road paved with the painful retelling of unimaginable horrors. Yet it was the only path to the justice Abby so desperately deserved. The prosecution's case was clear and unassailable. Thorne's own depraved actions, meticulously documented by his victim and confirmed by unyielding science, laid bare the monstrous truth. The trial reached its tense, emotionally charged crescendo. District Attorney Evelyn Reed delivered the prosecution's closing arguments with powerful, unwavering conviction, meticulously weaving together every damning piece of evidence. She meticulously reconstructed Abby's final agonizing days with chilling precision, presenting an undeniable narrative of Thorne's calculated cruelty. Reed held aloft Abby's diary, its pages a silent, potent testament. This, she stated, her voice resonating through the hushed courtroom, is not merely evidence. This is Abby Peterson's last will and testament, a raw, undeniable cry for justice from beyond her grave. She detailed the undeniable DNA evidence, the personal items recovered from the well, the chilling architecture of the secret room, and the meticulously documented lies Thorne had spun during interrogation. The defense, their arguments now appearing hollow and increasingly desperate, struggled visibly to counter the mountain of scientific and testimonial evidence. Thorne's high-profile attorney attempted to cast doubt on the forensic collection, to suggest a vast conspiracy, but these attempts felt forced, lacking any credible foundation. The jury, however, had seen and heard the unvarnished truth, etched into Abby's own words and amplified by the cold, irrefutable facts of the investigation. After 2 long, arduous days of intense deliberation, the jury returned. Courtroom, a crucible of raw human emotion, held its collective breath. Sarah and Mark Peterson clutched each other, their knuckles white, their gazes fixed with desperate hope on the jury foreman. Elias Thorne, embodying the defiant perpetrator, stood perfectly still, his face an unreadable mask, yet a faint tremor ran visibly through his jaw. The clerk's voice, clear and unsparing, cut through the oppressive silence on the charge of abduction. Guilty on the charge of false imprisonment. Guilty, and on the charge of first-degree murder. Guilty. A collective choked sob erupted from the gallery, quickly followed by quiet, triumphant murmurs, as the community absorbed the profound weight of the verdict. Sarah Peterson, her body momentarily sagging with the release of an unimaginable burden, then straightened, a fierce primal strength rising within her. Elias Thorne, upon hearing his fate sealed, could not suppress it. A flicker of raw, undisguised rage contorted his features for a split second, a chilling glimpse into the monster beneath the placid veneer, before his mask of indifferent stoicism returned. Sarah Peterson, embodying the fierce advocacy born from a mother's enduring love and unbearable loss, approached the podium to deliver her victim impact statement. Her voice, though trembling with the lifetime of grief now fully unleashed, was resolute, carrying a searing accusatory power that commanded the room. She looked directly at Thorne, her eyes burning with an unshakable conviction. "Elias Thorne," she began her words, slicing through the courtroom's heavy silence, "you opened an unfathomable abyss in our lives. You stole our daughter, our light, and left us with an emptiness no justice can ever truly fill." Her voice gathered a steel-like strength. "You are not just a recluse. You are a monster who preyed on innocence. You must never again be allowed to walk the earth as a free person." Her words, direct and aimed at the perpetrator, articulated the profound moral imperative for his perpetual confinement. The judge, his face etched with solemn finality, then delivered the sentence, ensuring Thorne would spend his remaining days within a prison cell, accountable at last for his depraved actions. The gavel's final echoing strike resonated as a powerful, definitive sound of justice rendered. In the solemn aftermath of Elias Thorne's conviction, the community of Hemlock Ridge began its arduous generational journey toward healing. The ghost of Abby Peterson, her luminous spirit brutally extinguished, and the profound horrors unburied from the well and the secret room would forever ripple through the town's quiet consciousness. It stood as a harrowing testament to the insidious darkness capable of festering beneath even the most serene exteriors, an indelible scar etched upon the collective soul. Yet amidst their shared grief, a new tenacious bond began to forge itself, tempered by sorrow but strengthened by unity. The Peterson family, though forever marked by their profound, irreplaceable loss, found a fragile semblance of solace in the relentless pursuit of justice that it finally concluded. The verdict, though incapable of resurrecting, Abby provided a measure of accountability, a definitive answer to the agonizing question of her fate. They channeled their enduring love and inconsolable grief into tangible action, transforming their sorrow into a powerful living legacy. They established the Abby Peterson Memorial Fund, a foundation dedicated to tirelessly advocating for missing persons and extending crucial support to other grieving families navigating the same unbearable pain. Through their unwavering efforts, Abby's vibrant spirit continued to resonate, her name now becoming a beacon of hope and perseverance for countless others. Sarah Peterson, her voice still carrying the poignant tremor of loss, frequently addressed community groups, her message a potent blend of warning and encouragement. "You cannot allow the shadows to win," she would declare, her eyes reflecting both past agony and present resolve. "You must champion the light for those who can no longer fight for themselves." Detective Carter, the seasoned detective, reflected quietly on the profound and enduring impact of the case. He acknowledged the sheer grinding perseverance demanded to uncover such a deeply entrenched secret, a truth so meticulously, cunningly concealed. He spoke not of triumph, but of the quiet satisfaction inherent in bringing a perpetrator to justice, of meticulously piecing back a fractured sense of order into a world violently shattered. His dedication to the case had been absolute and unwavering testament to his profound belief in the justice system he served. Every victim deserves to have their story told, to have someone fight relentlessly on their behalf, he often mused, his gaze distant, recalling Abby and the many others whose voices he had sought to amplify. This particular case for him profoundly underscored the unyielding pursuit of truth, a mission that continued to define his entire career. The omniscient narrator concludes with a poignant, lingering gaze at Hemlock Ridge Farm. Now abandoned, the farmhouse stood decaying, its empty window panes like vacant eyes staring out at the once vibrant fields. The well, once a site of chilling discovery, was covered and permanently secured, a silent, overgrown marker of profound human depravity. The secret room, too, had been irrevocably sealed, its horrors locked away from the light forever in doom. The farm, once a chilling epicenter of evil, slowly being reclaimed by the insistent march of nature, stood as a stark, powerful symbol. It was a testament that while darkness may hide and grief may endure with an everlasting ache, the relentless, unwavering pursuit of truth can ultimately pierce through the deepest shadows, illuminating what was lost. The story of Abby Peterson and Elias Thorne, a tale of a quiet town irrevocably changed, ultimately became a powerful narrative of resilience, a poignant and enduring reminder that even in the face of unimaginable sorrow, a legacy of hope and remembrance can take root and against all odds flourish. In the quiet depths of Hemlock Ridge, justice, though hard-won, illuminated the darkest secrets, allowing hope to finally blossom from the ashes of unimaginable loss. If you wish to follow more stories where relentless truth-seeking brings hard-won justice from the shadows of forgotten places, then subscribe to Shadow Files for more. Don't forget to subscribe to Shadow Files and hit the notification bell